When we did our original review on the Apprentice and Sensei trainers, we noticed that their stabilization systems weren't identical. We decided to do a separate review where we could match these stabilization systems up feature for feature. And that turned out to be a little revealing. To begin, Mike put the Apprentice in beginner's mode and then held full left aileron. And though he was holding full left aileron, the stabilization system was limiting the bank to around 15 degrees. This prevents the new pilot from over-controlling the plane and makes it easier for him to understand what the movements of the sticks do to the airplane. Here I have the Sensei in the beginner's mode and holding full left aileron. And here again the stabilization system keeps the plane at a roughly 15-degree bank. You can hold the control stick at full left or right aileron or full up or full down, and the plane will stay at about a 15-degree angle. Now Mike puts the Apprentice in the intermediate mode and puts it into a steep bank, and then tries to pull the elevator in to put the plane in a downward spiral that so many beginners get into. It surprised all of us that the spiral didn't go down at all. He's holding full left aileron and full up elevator, and the plane essentially goes around in circles at that altitude. It might even be climbing a little bit. We just didn't expect that. I put the Sensei in the intermediate mode, took it up and laid it over on its side and pulled in the elevator, and it immediately went into a downward spiral. It's not going down as fast as it would without a gyro, but this plane still needs to be saved or it's going in the ground. Beginning pilots get into this all the time where they overbank the plane, see it falling and pull in the elevator to try and get it to go back up, but all it does is tuck into this spiral and goes down to the ground. An instructor pilot would pay off here. The bailout switch is on the back of the radio. You have to pull this and hold it to save the airplane. So Mike took the Apprentice up and started thrashing it around the sky, got it inverted and pulled the switch. And right here he pulls it and goes right back to straight and level flight. Then Mike put the Apprentice into a pretty steep dive, which is going to be difficult to do with any of the stabilization systems. None of us expected it to jerk it out of the dive like that with a foam wing, but it did and the plane survived. I used the trainer button on the DX9 for the bailout switch. And every time I tried it, I could take the plane up, get it inverted, hit the switch, the plane would roll back over to normal flight, but look at it drop. And the same thing happened every time we tried this. It doesn't need a lot of elevator to save it, but you have to be flying the plane and remember to use the elevator, which a beginner might not. We also tried lighting the stabilization systems in beginner's mode, land the airplanes. We just lined it up on the runway and controlled the throttle. And here's the Apprentice. Just a touch up elevator by the pilot would have made this a perfect landing. And here we're going to let the Sensei land itself, again in beginner's mode, just me managing the throttle. It goes a little long because these planes do float a long way, and it nosed in just a little bit, just like the Apprentice. Here we're going to try hand launching the Apprentice in beginner's mode. And Mike didn't have to do anything. It pretty much flew away by itself. Mike launches the Sensei for me, which is also in the beginner's mode, and I had to give it a little elevator because it nose dropped again. The Sensei just seems to have a tendency of dropping the nose when you do things like hand launching or even takeoffs, where you have to hold the elevator to get some altitude to start with. The Apprentice and the Sensei are both good trainers. Both stabilization systems work pretty well, but the Apprentice is just more refined than the Sensei. And so in our real-world testing, the Apprentice comes out ahead. And that's important if you want to learn how to fly.